Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
No,
I'm Andy. This is Emmy.
I'm
And
putting something in my calendar, and if I don't do it now, I'm going to forget.
continuing the habit of always starting the videos when she's not ready, today we are going to talk about how to communicate better in relationships.
Hmm.
And I always like to ask, or I often like to ask Chat GPT for a little bit of advice on these because it gives you a really good perspective of what like the mainstream thinks. And spoiler alert, some of the mainstream advice here, some of the advice that we got, I'm going to have a little bit to say. So, oh, drama, controversial. Oh my goodness, holy crap, exciting. And so this is the prompt that I used with ChatGPT. Hey, ChatGPT, you sexy little beast. I don't really say that, but I added that in. That's how I want to talk to ChatGPT, but I sometimes get a little bit shy and anxious. I get approach anxiety with ChatGPT.
I'd imagine it would also say something like, that's not really
That's
appropriate.
inappropriate. As a large language model, I'm not sexy. Yes, you are, you sexy little slut, ChatGPT. I'm doing a YouTube video that'll be fun and entertaining. The title is this: How to Communicate Better in Relationships. You are obviously the AI I'm referring to, so give me your best advice, and I'm going to do a video on it, basically rating how good I think your advice is, adding my own advice, and critiquing one of the points that I've already read ahead and have a lot to say about and disagree with.
So, the first suggestion is number one, active listening. Give your full attention when your partner is speaking. Maintain eye contact, show interest through nonverbal cues, and avoid interrupting, which is something that Andy struggles with a lot. Truly listen to understand, not just to respond.
I understand really well.
And didn't interrupt. Good job.
How was that? That was good active listening, yeah?
I think a lot of the time when it comes to communicating, like just feeling like you can share stuff and have your partner listen and actually listen. Like that's been something that we've had to do quite a bit of work on.
Mm,
So, for
mm.
example, for the longest time, let's say for at least 3, if not 4 or more years of our relationship, for context, we've been together almost like 6.5, getting towards 7 years now. You were definitely somebody who always tried to fix everything. And it definitely got to a point where I didn't really want to tell you stuff all the time because
Mm.
I felt like it was always a problem when sometimes maybe I just wanted to share how I was feeling, but it was made into a problem that needed to be fixed rather than me just sharing.
Yeah, I've come a long way, I would say, in ability to listen and working on this one. I would focus less on the active listening part of this. I feel like this is some like, this is like the mainstream advice all the time when they're like, you got to actively listen. You got to nod your head, maintain strong physical eye contact, make sure you're really looking at your partner, like get your eyes nice and big and wide like this. I don't think that shit's as important. It's more just like have a bit of space where you listen to your partner and some things that can help. Sometimes it can be hard to listen because you got your own emotions that come up. Maybe you want to have an argument or a fight. Something that's helped us sometimes is you can just write stuff down. Like if you're not very good at active listening, which I wasn't always, and I still interrupt you to this day, I interrupt on podcasts all the time. It can help to have you write shit down for me, or even write it in a text message, and then I can read it at my own pace. I'm not going to interrupt.
Mm. And I think with like the nonverbal cues and eye contact, it's almost stuff that happens as a result of just trying to listen to
Yeah,
someone.
it feels almost like autistically over analyzing, like the same stuff that pickup artists do, where they're like, make sure you have good posture and good body language, and make sure you main. It's just too much shit to have to think about.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that comes as a result of just having the intention of listening. And the way that I put it to myself sometimes is like, don't insert your opinion. Like, don't get in there. Just let them have the space to talk.
Mm.
And sometimes I'm somebody that has at times struggled with like too many pauses or bits of silence in like some interactions with people, less so with you because it's been such a long time. But even with friends, I notice that I try and fill in gaps sometimes. And so I have these little reminders to myself of just pause.
Mm.
Like if somebody's telling a story and they pause for a little while or they say something about themselves, give them space to pause and maybe like time to add in anything else if they want to. So you're listening rather than like getting in there with your 2 cents.
How about each one of these dot points that ChatGPT, and again, the reason we use ChatGPT is because it gives like mainstream advice, so you can see what the mainstream advice is. How about each one of these points we give a rating out of 5? Like how many stars? I would give
Sure.
this 2 stars.
I think it's 3 because it's
You
like it's
give it
still
3?
it's listening. Like and listening is a
I
good
give it two
start.
stars.
Okay.
You give it 3, so we'll give it 2.5 stars. So yeah, I don't think active listening is as important as like psychologists and lots of like mainstream experts like to say it is. just set some time aside to listen to your partner. It doesn't matter how you do that, if that's written down, if that's communicative, any of that. If you're someone that struggles with active listening, like I always have been, I don't think you have to sit there and be like, I'm maintaining eye contact. Got to make sure I nod my head enough to show I'm listening. It's like,
As I said,
you're
I,
just
I
trying to
don't
overanalyze too much shit all at once.
I don't feel like this is the essence of this point, though. I feel like the actual essence of this point is listen to your partner,
I'm
not
listening.
the
I'm
small
listening.
extra steps.
I understand. I'm listening. I truly listened and I understood and I didn't respond. I didn't just respond. Yeah, it's too much shit to worry about. Second bit of advice on how to communicate a bit better is use I statements. When expressing your feelings or concerns, use I statements to avoid sounding accusatory. For example, say, I feel upset when, instead of you always make me upset when. This helps to convey your emotions without placing blame. Yeah, I like this one. You and I like this one.
Yeah.
You're basically taking responsibility for shit. Instead of saying, I'm the victim and you made me angry, or your actions pissed me off, you say, hey, I'm feeling some anger right now. There's some anger flowing through this body of mine, and let's have a chat about it. Let's figure out what to do. You're taking ownership of it, and then you can start to change things. But when you accuse your partner, if I say, you made me angry, your literal immediate knee-jerk reaction is defensiveness and like, well, you made me angry the other day, and then you start clashing. But if you're able to say, hey, honey, I'm feeling some anger. Would you mind helping me with this? Do you mind if we talk? You now have sort of a problem-solving mindset about the thing rather than blame and hate and victim and you're a perpetrator and I'm the poor victim. You're coming together on the same team and solving it.
Yeah, I like this one. This one's like a 4 out of 5 for me.
This is like straight up like an 87,000 out of 5.
Like I would say that it's not perfect and it's not going to solve all your problems. Like it can absolutely help your partner, I guess, get the information that you're trying to convey in a less accusatory sort of way.
Yeah.
But it's not the cure-all to like stop them from being defensive, because you can still say like, I feel upset when you do this or this, but like that can still be something that somebody feels the need to defend.
Yeah.
Like that's not unlikely. And similarly, you can still have a tone of attacking even when you say
without meaning to.
I feel, like in using I statements. There's still a lot of nuance in delivery and how you communicate things. And so it's not, at least for me, it's not like a 5 out of 5, but it's a really, really, really good start. And even if you can start, I guess, internalizing the way that you communicate and understanding that it's not just about saying the thing, it's actually about understanding what is being said, that they're not doing something to you. It's everything that you're feeling is your interpretation of your external world around you. Like it's all...
You're basically talking about stoicism here.
Yeah, it's all your beliefs and understanding of situations, and somebody might have an entirely different understanding. And once you realize that and realize that it's all your personal experience and that your partner might not have the same experience, it can be a bit easier to go into those conversations with a bit more peace and not trying to prove that you're right, and understanding that everyone's going to have their own perspective.
Basically, you could frame all of this as saying, work on your own independence, work on your own stoicism, realize that you can take responsibility for your own feelings. And that doesn't mean you blame yourself for your own feelings, but like you can take responsibility. And if you're feeling anger in a relationship, instead of going, my partner is pissing me off because they didn't put the dishes away or something, so it's their fault, they need to change, you can instead say, okay, what can I change? What can I do? Because a lot of the time, or all the time, when we blame our partner for something and we say like, they pissed me off, they need to change, they've done something bad, it's disempowering to you. You're doing yourself a disservice because now you're relying on your partner to change in order for you to be happy. What do you do if they don't change? Or what do you do if they're busy? Or what do you do if that change takes a little bit of time? Sometimes your partner agrees with you. They're like, I agree with you. I want to clean the dishes and keep the kitchen clean for you. I can see that it's pissing you off or you're letting yourself be pissed off over it. I would like to work on being cleaner, but I've always had a habit of being messy. Can you please be patient with me and help me while I work on this? If you're sitting there saying, I will only be happy when my partner changes and does what I want, if you loved me, you do what I want and you do everything I want exactly the way I want it without me even communicating it half the time. You have to read my mind as well. And my preferences and likes and all of that will change. And you have to constantly keep up to date with everything I want at all times. And when I'm grumpy, I'll want a whole bunch of extra stuff because I'm in a bad mood. And I won't tell that to you. And you have to mind read. that's just a fucking minefield. But if you can take responsibility for your own feelings and say, okay, I'm angry. What can I do to work on that? Or I'm having a bad day. What can I do to work on that? Then, man, that's where the peace starts. And a really big game changer here is realizing that you're never upset for the reasons you think you are. That's a fucking massive game changer. You think you're pissed off because your wife didn't put the dishes away, or because your husband like didn't put the kids to bed on time or some shit. And it's like, no, it's not that. It's that you fucking hate your job and you feel like you're not living a life that's true to yourself, and you carry around all this resentment and you feel like, man, I didn't marry the right man. And there's like so many other variables and extra context going on underneath the surface. And it is almost never the small little things. Like, you really think you're pissed off because your husband didn't put the dishes away? Come on, it's the fucking dishes. If you really cared, you'd put them away. Or you'd say, fuck it, let's pay for a maid and we'll pay her like $20 and she can put the dishes away. Like, there are so many other solutions, and that is such a small, minute first world problem. That's not why you're mad. You're mad at all the other stuff. A way to rephrase that is, if you're really happy with your life and you're really happy with all the decisions that you're making and who you are and all of that, and you feel peace and love and abundance and joy, your partner not doing the dishes is the most minor thing ever. In fact, you giggle and you're like, you're so messy. And they're like, I know, baby. And you're like, that's okay. I'll do the dishes for you. And you're like, thanks, sweetheart. I appreciate it. Like, it's such a minor non-issue. And so if you feel yourself getting upset or angry over stuff that your rational, logical brain agrees is quite minor, then that would tell you that there's something going on underneath the surface, and it's up to you to get under there and figure it out. And you can have your partner help you. You can say, honey, I don't know why I keep snapping at you when you don't do the dishes. Like, is it really about the dishes? Can you please help me figure out what might be going on? And then you start to ask deeper questions. Are you happy with your life? What's going on? What kind of life would you like to live? What would be a life that's true to you? And all of that stuff. And you dig underneath the surface.
100%.
A little bit extra that I'd like to say here is they kind of talked about multiple things here at once without realizing they were doing it. Like, the first example they say, they're like, say I feel upset when, instead of you always make me upset when. So make me upset is obviously blaming, but the word always here is something that's called black or white thinking, or all or nothing thinking, or dualistic thinking, or making it binary. This is something that psychologists will point out to you. If you say statements like always or never, or always and never, let's just work with those, you're making it black and white. You're making it all or nothing. The reality is they don't always make you upset every time they don't do the dishes. And you might go, yes, they do. Every single time they don't put the dishes away, I get pissed off. And it's like, stop for half a second. Can you think of a single time when you didn't get angry at them not doing the dishes? And you're like, oh yeah, well, there was that one time where we'd had a lot of intimacy and we'd had a lot of love with each other and we were both in a good mood, and he didn't do the dishes, and I kind of laughed it off, and I was like, whatever, honey, don't worry about it. Okay, so it's not true that they always make, or that I always get upset. And then what you can start to do is say, because there was that one moment where I wasn't upset because I was in a good mood, wait, would that just mean if I could help myself have good moods more often, I wouldn't care about the dishes? In other words, that's like your light at the end of the tunnel. That is your hope. That is you showing yourself that there is a possible world in which you don't get pissed off at your partner for whatever you're pissed off about. And so then you can start working towards that. You can say, honey, the times when we're very intimate, I just feel like I have more patience. I feel like I don't snap at you for a bunch of stuff that I don't really care about. Can we work on being more intimate? And your partner will go, yeah, I think I'd like that too. And then you figure out how to do that. So you can start problem solving.
And challenging like the you never statements as well, I think are even easier to do, because like if you're saying like you never listen or you never do this or that, there's often almost always an example in which your partner like does do the thing that you're seeking.
Yeah.
But it's just you feel or you focus on all of the times that the thing that you want is not happening. So with all of this, like this entire point I think can be summarized in like, start challenging the beliefs that you have around your partner, specifically the ones that are making you unhappy or causing conflict. And when you start, I guess, unpacking them a little bit and just asking yourself, like, is my thought or belief absolutely 100% correct, or is there another way of looking at it?
Yeah, can I reframe this for sure? And that's Stoicism. That's my Play to Win video course. I talk about that a lot. Yeah, you're just looking at things through a slightly more compassionate, forgiving, and maybe more rational and truthful lens, because often when we're very emotional, We don't mean to be. We're definitely not aligned with reality. When we become very emotional, we will say statements like, "You always make me upset." It's like that's false for multiple reasons.
Mm.
Always make me upset. Is that true? Well, okay, fine. No, that wasn't entirely truthful. There are lots of times you haven't, or I haven't gotten upset. Make me upset. Did I make you upset, or did you feel upset and then you blamed me for that? In other words, would stoicism and all of that sort of stuff get you to maybe some anger management classes get you to a point where you're not angry at other people? Yeah. Okay. So do you have some, not blame, but like responsibility here? Is there something you could do to get to a point where you don't feel emotional? Or you're able to cope with the emotions or deal with the emotions or love the emotions. Yes. Okay. So it's not a true statement to say you always do this. And it's not a true statement to say you're doing this. You know, there's that Byron Katie quote, "Nobody else can hurt me. That's my job." And there's another quote that she says, "Nobody else can disappoint me. I tell a story of how they disappoint me and I disappoint myself. You know, nobody else can upset me. I tell a story of how they've upset me and I upset myself with that story." And so all of this is stoicism. All of this is something that you can practice. We were not good at this shit. This has taken us the better part of like, let's just say 5 years. It's only really in the last year that we've been decent with stoicism and patience and empathy and unconditional love towards each other and all of that sort of stuff. It's a process. You know, you're probably not going to just wake up one day and have perfect communication skills.
Yeah,
Progress, not perfection.
absolutely.
And number 3, bit of mainstream / ChatGPT advice on communicating is be mindful of tone and body language. Communication is not just about the words that you use. Pay attention to your tone of voice and body language as they can greatly impact how your message is received. Aim for a calm and respectful tone and use open and non-threatening body language.
So we had a brief chat like a second ago as we were paused that you don't like this one. And I think it's because you're a bit autistic.
Do you want me to
But
explain? You're going to give me a chance to explain?
yeah, after I finish
Okay, go.
talking about how I feel about this one,
Yep.
I'd probably give it like a 2, maybe a 2.5 out of 5 in terms of how I feel about it. I think it's one that, like, you can say all the right things, but if you say it in an angry, accusatory,
Yeah, if I'm like, "I fucking
cold,
love you, bitch. You fucking, I love you so much, okay?" It's like, yeah, that's very different.
like I think a common example is like the sentence "it's fine." You can be like, "Oh," you can be like, "Oh no, it's fine." Like,
What's wrong? What's wrong? Nothing.
yeah, or you can be like, "Oh no, nothing's wrong. I'm all good." Like, so like obviously things like that, like there's a big difference in tone, and that can also come across as like when you're trying to work through things or discuss things with your partner. Like, we're just gonna keep using the dishes because it's a nice, easy to access example, but like you could come to your partner and be like, "Hey, like, do you mind do you mind just putting your dishes away, like they've been sitting in the sink for a little bit?" And like that's a pretty non-threatening, nice way to address that versus like, "Do you mind putting your dishes in the sink?" Like,
Do you want to put, would you mind actually putting your dishes away for once, please? I've told you. Like, yeah.
so like obvious like there's some value in like in the way that you express things, and I often find that like when you're really emotional, even if you try really, really, really hard, you might still come across with a shitty tone. And so rather than trying to like fake a nice tone, I find
Which
just
is
like
what this is saying. I feel like this is basically saying fake a nice tone.
just not
Like
necessarily
if you're
my
in a bad mood,
interpretation of it, but
let's say you're in a bad mood, you're really emotional, and every part of you wants to be aggressive and yell at your partner. I feel like what this one is saying is like, be mindful of your tone and body language. And it's not telling you how to do that. Like, if I'm really angry, I can try really hard to mind my tone and body language. And do you know how it comes out?
poorly.
Passive aggressive.
Sure. And
I
so
can't help myself. Like, everyone is passive aggressive when they're feeling angry, but they're not being honest about that and having integrity to say, "I'm angry right now." So I would rather you just fall back on honesty and truth and say, "Look, honey, this is really affecting me. I'll be really honest right now. I'm really mad."
sure, but I think if you don't have good emotional regulation, you're not even going to be able to say that sentence with being like, "I'm fucking mad right now," versus like, "Hey, I'm mad
I
right
think
now."
that's at least more honest. Say, "Look, honey, I'm really fucking angry right now." That's way better than faking body language and faking like tone of voice and almost forcing yourself to lie. Like, this one just to me feels a bit, I can see people going down the pathway of non-integrity and not being honest with themselves and with their partner about how they're actually feeling. It's almost like suppressing.
Sure. And
Or people will take this and suppress their emotions and say, well, I got to make sure my tone and body language is good. You're basically faking it.
well, I think maybe I've probably got a different takeaway from this one, which I was going to get into, which was that rather than trying to change your tone when you're feeling very emotional, feeling very heated, just giving yourself a minute,
Yeah.
like giving yourself time, whether that's like 10 minutes of like just having some time to yourself, or like 30 seconds of deep breathing, or maybe you need a full day when it's not super fresh and you've slept on it. And then you can kind of have that conversation again when you're not going to be super emotionally charged. And so it's probably going to be a lot easier to have those conversations in like a peaceful, open sort of way.
Yeah, for sure. Basically, what I'm saying here is just don't be so mindful that you just get caught up in like, fuck, what's my tone? What's my body language? Like, that can again go down the route that I see a lot with like pickup artists when guys are trying to learn to talk to women, and they'll be like, all right, what is my body language? What is my tone of voice? What is my exact, sentence that I'm saying? What words am I using? How's my text game? Am I doing everything perfectly? I got to make sure that I'm perfect. Otherwise she might fucking reject me. Holy shit, then my world would fall apart. And you become so caught up in the body language, the tone, everything, the words, all of that, that you're missing the entire purpose of why you're doing this. You're doing this to connect with another human being. It's not very connecting. Like, you don't feel very connected to someone else when you're so caught up in your tone and body language. So I would say the same thing here. Rather than focusing on the tone and the body language and almost faking it or doing it as a manufactured, almost not sociopathic, but like, rather than trying to play a character who has good tone and body language, if you feel like you're about to have maybe some negative tone or body language, like you're about to snap at your partner, do what Imi just said. Go take a bit of time to yourself, take some space, maybe write it down rather than saying it. Like, if you feel like the only way I can say this thing to my partner is going to be in an angry tone with angry, pent up, frustrated body language, I'll take a deep breath. I'll do some meditation. I'll work on my stoicism. Maybe I'll write it down in a text message or something. Maybe I'll even go to them and just break the fourth wall and be like, honey, I've been trying so hard to say this in a nice way because ChatGPT and the mainstream told me to be mindful of my tone and body language, but I can't do it. I'm fucking mad at you, honey. I'm so fucking angry. And then the other person will go, okay, well, I didn't do anything wrong. Why are you mad at me? It's like, I don't know, honey. I'm just fucking angry. Like, can you please fucking help me with this? I hate you, but can you help me with this?
Yeah, keeping
Sure.
in mind if you have those conversations, your partner might get defensive, especially if you have a culture of attacking each other and having these arguments. Like, you can't necessarily, like, you might not get the perfect response of like, sure, let's work on this together. It must be like, fuck you, I haven't done anything. But all of this stuff, it's about like taking small steps
Yeah, progress, not perfection.
to, I guess, like, again, like work on this communication. Like, if you're watching this video, you're trying to improve or get some ideas as to how to communicate with either your partner or just people in generally a bit
all
better.
of this applies to anyone that you talk to, really. Like, even casual sex partners, friends, etc. Yeah, all of this applies.
We just work on getting a little bit better at communicating each time.
Yeah, and you and I were not perfect at this. We're still not perfect with communication.
100%.
Actually, that's not true. We're pretty perfect with communication. We're humble as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're pretty good at communication. I'd say we're really good at it now.
We do a decent job.
But it took many years, and we were absolutely doing our best for the first couple of years. But oh my God, our communication had lots of passive aggressiveness in it. Sometimes we would save up ammunition to attack each other. Like, you'd remember, like, someone would make a mistake and you'd lock it into your brain and you go, I'm going to fucking use that next time you come at me with something. And then you get into a little argument. You're like, all right, bitch, like, keep going.
Sometimes it's not like as intentionally like Machiavellian or like combative as that, but it's more like you don't let it go when it happens in the moment and you hold on to it, and there's that little bit of resentment there. And so when you're already angry, then all of the things that you're angry about kind of come flooding in. Like, it's not that like I'm writing a list to bring it up later. It's more that I haven't fully let it go. I'm holding on to some resentment. And so when I like start feeling angry again, all of the things that I feel resentful for are going to start coming up.
Yeah, for sure. And so letting go helps with this stuff. Stoicism helps with this stuff. The Play to Win video course helps with this stuff. But it's really just a practice thing. Like, I think something else that really helps that we've always done is a weekly accountability check-in. So once a week you will meet with your partner, and you can do this with people that you're dating even just casually, and you will say, how's the relationship going? What are 5 things we're grateful for that we think we're doing really well? What are some things that we could do a little bit better? How's your life going? What goals are you working on? How can I support that? What goals am I working on? How can you support me? And so you're building each other individually and you're building the relationship. And that's a really good, decent place because you're trying to be logical and rational about it. That is the idea. In those moments, you can sometimes bring up shit that you've been hanging on to all week. And we used to a lot, like back when we were arguing a lot more, we would on those weekly check-ins be like, I haven't brought this up for the whole week because I was almost waiting until this check-in because I know that we're a lot more rational and calm and logical in the check-in. And we're coming together for this weekly accountability check-in to improve the relationship. Like literally that is the intention and the mission. We're not, it's almost like a safe place. We're coming together to fix things, not to fucking argue. And so we're going to come together, talk about shit, be rational, all of that. So you can do that. But yeah, it's progress, not perfection. How do we rate this one? You rated it
2.5.
2.5. Look, I think I would rate it like 3. Especially if someone's in a relationship where they do often threaten each other and they get angry and all of that. I think working on being a little bit more calm and peaceful and all of that in your body language could help. But I wouldn't sit there and overanalyze your body language. Like, understand that body language and tone flows from your own internal state. And same with like pickup artist stuff and all of that. Rather than going, let me fix my body language and let me fix the words that I say. Let me work on being more deep and tone and masculine. No. Work on that self-love, work on having a happy life that you really like, work on the relationship with your partner and liking each other and approving of each other and all of that. And then the body language and the tone just flows. Like if you're in a peaceful, loving state full of abundance and joy, and in other words, if you're really happy with who you are, your body language and tone of voice will just be peaceful anyway. Like you don't have to autistically fake it and worry about it and overanalyze it, which would just be you suppressing and lying anyway. So yeah, I'm on the fence with this one. Maybe I'll give it like 2.5. I think it's sort of useful. I just would like to see a little bit more. I think just saying like aim for a calm and respectful tone is completely missing the mark. That's overanalyzing the symptom rather than the cause. The cause being your internal state and how you feel about yourself and your partner. And that is what I would work on. I wouldn't sit there and go, I need to change my tone and use non-threatening body language. No, change the internal voice that you have inside yourself about yourself and your partner.
Number 4, clarify and ask questions. If you're unsure about something your partner said, ask for clarification rather than making assumptions. Paraphrase what you heard to ensure understanding. Asking questions shows your interest and commitment to clear communication. I like this one. I think I feel like a lot of people in school heard the saying like assumptions makes like an ass out of you and me. And I think it is often that like they're jumping to conclusions that can cause problems. Going like, when you said this, you meant this. And
people will try and mind read what the other person.
I know you were thinking this because you said this or did this. And I think that can often, it can cause unnecessary conflict because then there's the need to defend and be like, no, you've got it all wrong. Like you're misreading that and judging the situation. And that can be frustrating.
You never listen to me.
To not be understood. And so asking the question, especially if you do hear something or like your partner says something that like you feel a strong reaction or it makes you upset, like it can help to clarify, like did you mean this? Like is this what you meant by saying that? Because a lot of the time, like if like nobody's, generally speaking, people's intentions not to be an asshole or to like to hurt the other person or offend or attack. It is just to get on. Like most people want to get on with each other and are probably not going to try and say like inflammatory, cruel, accusatory things. And so if you've maybe interpreted something as such, it might be worth reassessing. And this is kind of what we were saying in the previous point too, that a lot of this stuff can be your own projection or your own interpretation, or you're putting your own spin on things based on how you're feeling or your internal state. And literally asking what Andy will sometimes call like autistic questions can help remove a lot of the gray area and a lack of clarity.
Yeah, being autistically honest. Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of the time we don't hear what our partner said. We hear what we think they said. We're filtering it through our own worldview, through our own way of interpreting what they had to say. It's almost like there's a translation service between two different languages operating constantly when we talk to everybody. Like we just are. We're filtering things through our own experience. If I say to someone, think of a car, all of you listening just thought of different cars. Some of you thought of a Lamborghini. Some of you thought of an old beat up like truck. Some of you probably thought of a bus because you failed the mission when I said think of a car. You thought of a bus. Some of you think of a toy car. I thought, okay, I'm curious. Let's go 3, 2, 1, and on one we have to say the color of the car that we were thinking of, and like, yeah, just say the color. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1.
Red.
Oh, holy shit!
I think most
We're on
people will
a
think of a
wavelength.
red car.
Yeah, but a bunch of people would be like, I thought of a yellow car or a
Yeah.
blue car or a white car or a green car or any of that sort of stuff. And so my point there is, if we can't even think of the same fucking car when someone says car, because there's so many different variations of car, you can see how in language we're always just trying to hint at what we're saying, and we're hoping the other person picks up on that hint. And so here's a better example. With dating, so much of the time, someone will say, hey, I'm looking for something casual. I just want to date casually. And the other person will go, oh, I'm not looking for that. I don't want that. Goodbye. But if you take the time to say, oh, I'm curious, just before you leave, like, what were you looking for? And they're like, well, I don't want a booty call. I don't want to just be a fuck buddy. And you're like, I don't want that either. I said I want to date casually. And they're like, wait, what does dating casually mean to you? And you're like, what does it mean to you? And she's like, whoa, like I want someone that I can see once or twice a week, and we would ask about each other's lives, and we will, maybe have sex, and we will talk about what we're up to, and we care about each other, and maybe we meet each other's friends eventually. And you're like, that's what casually dating is. That's what I meant. And she's like, oh,
Yeah, but some people would call that like a relationship. And so it's
Yeah, so-
understanding what people's definition.
yeah, people don't agree on definitions of stuff. That's why I say a lot, especially if there's misinterpretation, just be autistically honest and specific about what it is that you're wanting or what it is that you're meaning. So I just say, like, cut all the bullshit. Don't use smooth language. Don't try and be James Bond in dating and like hinting at stuff and innuendo. Just fucking be clear. Like if you're in a bar with someone, you're having a great time, you guys have already kissed, or maybe you're feeling some chemistry. If you want that person to come back to your apartment, just say, would you like to come back to my apartment? And then if she goes, why or what for? Just tell the truth. Just say, because I'm attracted to you. I'd love to have sex with you if you want to. If you don't want to do that, I'd happily just make out with you. We can touch each other, like whatever you're up for. Like, what would you like? And then she goes, oh, wow, you're honest. Okay. Sure. Can we go back to your place and make out a little bit and then see how we feel? That sounds great. Like, you don't have to try and drop little fucking hints and hope that she gets the message, but doesn't get it so much that she thinks you're too blunt or any of that stuff. It's like, just fucking tell the truth. So, especially in a deeper relationship, the more you can be autistically honest and just say whatever the truth is, rather than trying to hint at it or rather than trying to interpret what you thought the person meant. How many times have you had, like one of your friends come to you and say, hey, my boyfriend, my partner of like fucking 5 years that we've been together, and we still aren't quite at the point of honesty. And that's okay, because it's like, it takes a lot of fucking practice. But we've been together for 5 years, and he said this to me. What do you girls think it mean? And like, you all get together and you're trying to interpret what he fucking meant.
So my friends don't really do that, ones that have been in relationships. But I think one that is common is like somebody that like they're into or like is in the workplace and
Yeah.
like there's a lot of that. I think that like when you're not really dating, but you kind of like somebody and you're trying to like suss out whether they're into you. Like that's when I think I still experience having friends ask those questions.
It's like they're trying to read minds. I get this in my coaching program all the time when someone will be like, hey, this girl sent this text message. Can you guys tell me what it means? Like, what does she mean by this? Like, she said, I'm looking for something casual. What do you think she means by that? And I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to know? Why don't you ask her? Ask her. Everything you just said to us, say that to her. Ask her. And then they will ask her and she'll be clear. And then they have a conversation and then he'll come back and go, oh my God, turns out I could just ask and then they'll tell me and we'll figure it out. So yeah, the more you can ask questions and just be autistically honest, like I just see this as honesty, this one, man, it makes life so much easier rather than trying to guess or read. Something else you can do is you can say, what's your intention? Like if you come and say something to me and I'm trying to figure out like,
Why are they telling me this?
yeah, why is she telling me this? Or like why are we having this conversation? Like, what does she want? You can literally just say, what are you trying to accomplish? Like what do you want? Or why are you asking me this? Like, what are you trying to work towards? And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. Well, the reason that I'm asking you is because blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, oh, okay. Well, I can answer that question. Like, people aren't always great, including us sometimes, not always great at specifically asking for what they want or asking the question that they're trying to ask. A lot of the time, people will ask a different question, hoping that it will answer their question, but they're phrasing it in like a politically correct way or a way that they think will be taken perfectly or something. And they're not really asking a question in a way that will get them the answer that they're actually looking for. It's like they're asking a separate question and they haven't said what they really want. So you can just say that. You can be like, is there a different question you're trying to ask me? Like
Maybe
why are you asking me this question?
like a smoother or less clunky way of maybe responding might be like, was there something you would like from me? What would you like from me in this
Yeah.
moment? And like, would you like me to listen? Would you like advice? Would you like us to like problem solve something like that? I think what would you like from me is something that we
Yeah.
use a lot in our relationship, not just to respond to things, but also to just put it out there as to like, I love you, I care about you. Is there anything I can give you right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say that there's probably another interpretation of this point as well. And it's not so much about like conflict resolution or like having issues, but also just like almost similar to the point about active listening, to just feel like somebody's being heard or to actually engage with somebody in a way that feels meaningful, to help your partner feel like you care about them. Like if they tell you about something, like if you're interested, ask questions about what that was like, how they were feeling, like tell me more about that. Like it feels nice if you're passionate about something to have somebody be genuinely interested and care about what you have to say, and to have somebody ask questions and to be engaged with what it is that you're sharing. Like part of that is communication. And it is also, I guess, building a connection and a deeper
Yeah.
bond with
Yeah.
somebody. And obviously, like, don't ask questions if you don't give a shit. But generally speaking, if you get people talking about something that they're passionate about, like that's interesting. Passionate people on any topic can be really interesting if you prompt them.
Yeah, and if it is really something that you don't care about, you can just be honest about that. There's stuff in my world, like my own independent life, that you don't really care about. And there's stuff in your life that, like, I support you. I love seeing you passionate about it, but I don't necessarily want to sit there and have a 3-hour conversation about it. Like, I'm just not that interested. It doesn't excite me. Like, if you started talking to me about hiking, which you love hiking, I wouldn't necessarily sit there for 3 hours and listen to you talking about hiking. And so I just be honest about that. Like I just say like, oh, this isn't something I'm super passionate about, but I'd love to hear why you're passionate about it. I want to hear about your passion rather than hiking. It's like, I'm not interested in the actual details of the hiking, but I'm interested in why you care about it because I care about you. So same thing. Like I'm into lots of nerdy shit that you don't necessarily massively care about,
And there's probably
but
something.
you care about that I'm passionate.
Sorry.
Yeah, what were you going to say?
I was actually going to say this is probably something that I'm not perfect with, because you, Andy, love to go on big old rants
I fall down rabbit holes about stuff I get passionate about. Yeah.
and give TED Talks on things, which I love and I find it really interesting. But then sometimes, like, my brain gets a little bit tired from listening, and I probably do let you keep going because I know you're passionate and I care about you and I like that you like sharing. But sometimes my little brain gets a little bit tired. But
Yeah. So always room for improvement. You and I
Yeah.
are still improving for sure. But yeah.
Number 5, express appreciation and validation. Take the time to express appreciation for your partner's efforts and validate their feelings. Let them know that their thoughts and emotions are important to you. This fosters a supportive and positive communication environment.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. This is something that we do all the time.
100%. Yeah.
Like 10 times a day at least.
Yeah. Like gratitude. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. Thank you for doing this or that. Or
Thank you for holding the groceries. Thank you for cooking dinner. Thank you for being so sweet. I really loved making love to you. You're so pretty. Like just all that shit constantly. Yeah.
just makes you feel good. It feels nice to give love and be loved, and to hear that
Yeah.
a lot.
Maybe the only thing I'd say here is like validate their feelings. Like I don't like the word validate. I think a lot of the time when people do this, like let's say you come to me and you're really pissed off, which doesn't really happen anymore, but like we used to get really mad at each other. Let's say you come to me, you're really angry and you're like, I'm angry that you didn't do the dishes. I wouldn't then go like, yeah, your feelings are... I guess I would. I'd say, I understand why you're feeling like that. I get it. But I wouldn't be like, yeah, you're right. I am a piece of shit. Like sometimes feelings get to the point where we start to believe them, like, and we go, well, I'm angry, so therefore I'm justified in my anger. He is a piece of shit. He is an asshole. What's my evidence for that? I'm angry. That's my evidence. So I wouldn't necessarily. I think we all know that when we're very emotional and we're almost to the point of hysterical, which all of us have been there many times, right? When we're very emotional, we're not very rational. So I would basically say, it's okay that you're feeling like that. I understand. Like, I'm not going to invalidate your feelings. I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong. You're not wrong for feeling angry. That's just your body having an emotional reaction. You didn't choose to get angry. It's just the body doing its thing, you know? But the thing behind the anger might not necessarily be true.
Sure.
So let's get in there and work on that. And maybe I can do something to help. You can do something to help. So yeah, there's a little bit more nuance to that other than just like validate their feelings. Like if someone comes to you and they're like, you're a piece of shit, I wouldn't go like, you're correct. Like I agree with that.
I think that's an oversimplified idea of validation, but
Yeah,
simply
yeah.
starting with like, I understand, like regardless of what
Yeah.
somebody's feeling, you can say like, I understand that you're feeling like that.
Yeah, and something that helps is I always like to extend an olive branch and tell them that I've felt like that before. I feel like that's just the immediate thing to really good communication. Someone comes to you and they go, I'm really pissed off because you didn't do the dishes. And then think of a time when you've been pissed off that someone else, doesn't have to be your partner, just someone in the world, you were annoyed because they didn't do a chore or they didn't do something. And then you can be like, yeah, I get it. Like I've been annoyed at people when they didn't do something that I wanted them, that I thought was pretty easy. I get it. I know. I've been there. Like that is just the easiest. That's what I do with my coaching clients all the time. Anytime they're pissed off about something or upset, I'll be like, I get it, dude. I used to feel exactly like this. Or I still sometimes feel like this. Or I've felt similar to this when X or Y or Z happened. And so you give a little example. That immediately just smooths the path. Immediately, the other person gets a lot off the attack. Like they stop attacking as much. If you're just like, no, I get it. I get it. I've been there. I know exactly how you're feeling. They're like, oh. By the way, if any of you work in customer service, that is just like the cheat code. The cheat code.
Sure, some people want to be angry.
Yeah, for sure. But if someone comes to you, like when I worked at Target, remember that I told you about that grumpy woman? The woman who's
Yeah,
grumpy?
you tell me that story regularly. Yes.
Because it's a really cool story. So this woman came in, she was super grumpy about something. I can't remember what it was. And she was on the attack. And usually when people attack a customer service representative, the person either becomes like super passive and just like almost robotic because they're defensive, like fair enough. Or they turn it on and they're like, all right, Karen, I'm going to fucking attack now too. And now we can go head to head and nobody really solves the problem and everybody walks away angrily. And they don't mean to do that. It's just like an emotional response. But the way to smooth it over is to go, no, I get it. Like I might be a little bit annoyed about this too if it was me. Like I get it. I understand exactly why you're feeling. Or like, yeah, no, I've had this happen to me too at a different company. You know, I get it. Like I understand exactly how you're feeling. Let's solve this problem for you. And they're like, oh, I came in here ready for a battle. I came in here pumping myself up, puffing up my chest, getting emotional and angry and ready to duel. I was ready to fight. And the first words out of your mouth were, nah, I get it. Yeah, I get it. Let's solve this for you. And you're like, oh. And so, yeah, I had this woman that was super grumpy, super like ready for a fight. And just immediately, as soon as she started attacking, and she did start attacking, she was very passive aggressive and then sort of aggressive. As soon as she started attacking, I was like, no, I get it. I'd probably be pretty annoyed at this too if it was me. So let's solve this for you. And then she just kind of calmed down. And at the end or halfway through, once I'd started solving her problem, she she was kind of sweet. She was like, hey, I'm really sorry for being grumpy. And again, I extended that olive branch and I was like, no, I get it. You weren't even that grumpy, but I've been grumpy tons of times at people, at waiters, at stuff like, no, I get it. Like, I don't think you were grumpy. I've been there. And she was like, thank you. Like, okay. So I guess that's validating the other person's feelings, isn't it?
Yes.
You're basically saying, I felt exactly like this. I went through something similar. Or if you haven't ever been through that, which like, I feel like you'd be lying. If someone's like, I'm angry, and you're like,
I've never been
what's
angry.
anger?
Can't
I've
relate
never
to
felt
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe if you're psychopathic or something, and shout out to any psychopathic listeners out there. But
Probably not watching your channel
shout out to my psychopathic listeners.
on effective communication.
Yeah, and honesty and yeah. But yeah, I feel like that's just the olive branch right there. I've felt like this before too.
Did we rate this one?
I would rate this like fucking 7 out of 5. 5 stars. I like this one. You got to give your rating, woman.
Wait, we went to a different point.
Oh, whoops! I accidentally scrolled. Whatever. We fucked that up. This is what we were trying. This is what we're actually reading at. Clarify and ask questions. What would you rate?
No, we already did that.
Did we? No, we didn't go to a different point. You're tripping balls. Express appreciation and validation. You're tripping me out now, woman. Anyway,
Validation. Because we're talking a lot about like validating
yeah. Anyway,
emotions.
give a rating to this. I rate this one 5. 5 out of 5. I like this one.
I like this one too. I would also say 5. Appreciation is nice.
Pretty decent.
Yeah. Number 6, avoid mind reading. Avoid assuming you know what your partner is thinking or feeling. Instead, ask for their perspective and encourage open dialogue. Remember that clear communication requires active participation from both sides.
Yeah, we basically already covered this. This to me is exactly the same as clarify and ask questions. Again, like with my coaching clients, when they're like, what is this person thinking? I'm like, I don't know, just ask them. Stop trying to mind read. Like the less you guys and girls can guess and instead just ask, be autistically honest, just say, hey, I'm not really sure what you meant by this. What did you mean? The easier it is to communicate. I've said this to you before. The reason that I say autistic honesty a lot in this content is because I'm probably autistic myself, or at least bits of autism. And autistic clients are my favorite people to work with by fucking far, because they'll come to me and they'll do all the thing of like, how do I be smooth? How do I make sure my body language is perfect? How do I have the best tone of voice? How do I say this in a way where it will be taken the right way? And I'm like, bro, do you have autism? And they'll go, yes. And I'll be like, then ditch that shit, motherfucker. Use your superpower. Do you care about honesty and truth, which is a part of a trait of autism, usually for most people? And they're like, yeah, I like get hung up on the truth and honesty. I'm obsessed with it more than anyone else I've ever met. I'm like, sweet, bro. So why are you trying to fucking lie? And they're like, yeah, why am I? I'm like, just tell the fucking truth, brother. Don't try that mind reading shit. Don't try that, like, I got to figure out the body language and read the signals. You're probably not very good at that because you have autism. And so just skip that game entirely, bro. Just say exactly what's on your mind. Tell the truth. Don't mind read. And when I say all that to them and I'm like, your autism could be your superpower and you could teach other people, teach non-autistic people about how to be a bit more honest, how to tell the truth, how to mind read a bit less, man, they fucking hit the ground running, because those are the guys that will just absolutely crush it. They'll walk into a bar and they'll just walk up to every woman and be like, hi, my name is Matt. I think you're really pretty. Would you like to talk to me? And she's like, well, hi, Matt. Yeah, I would. And then it'll just get to a point where it's like, by the way, you're really pretty. Can I please kiss you? And then she'll be like, okay. And then he'll kiss her. And then he'll be like, I'm having fun. Would you like to go back to my apartment and we can make out and see if we want to take it further than that? And she goes, okay. And he just like fucking tells the truth. And those are the guys that will meet women and have a bunch of threesomes and have a bunch of sex. And they're like, wow, I fucking suck at this shit. I'm not smooth. I don't know how to have good body language. I don't know what she's thinking, but I don't need to. I just avoid mind reading and I tell the truth and I ask. And those are the guys where anytime they're having a conversation and they're not sure what she's thinking, I will encourage them to just say, hey, I'm not sure what you're thinking. What are you thinking? Can you please tell me? And then she'll tell the truth. And they go, wow, this is easy. I don't have to mind read. And so they actually end up doing, like my clients that have had autism, end up doing better in a lot of cases than people without autism. Even though the world will tell you that autism is a bad thing and it will negatively affect your interpersonal relationships and all of that. It's like, not if you're honest and open and just fucking ask and tell the truth. And don't try any of that body language, mind reading bullshit. Like, ditch all that. And if you're not autistic, ditch all that shit anyway. Just be honest and learn a little bit from autistic people. So rating for this one, I would rate this 5 stars. I like this so much.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's basically like everything else that we wanted to add on when it came to asking more questions.
Number 7, time and place. Be mindful of the timing and setting of your conversations. Choose a time when both of you are available and can dedicate your attention to the discussion. Avoid having important conversations in moments of high stress or when distractions are present.
I think this one ties in quite well to what we were saying about body language and tone, like picking the time, specifically when you're trying to work through conflict or disagreements or have more serious conversations, like picking a time when you're not emotional and when the other person probably isn't as well, so you can both have a more calm, or give it the best chance of being a calm and rational conversation. But what I like, the other point that I think this point number 7 makes, is also if you're trying to communicate with each other, even if that's just to have like nice kind of bonding moments, removing distractions, removing phones, being in like a quiet place where you can actually connect with each other.
Yeah, and that's why doing like a weekly accountability check-in just highly recommended for everyone in a relationship, including casual relationships if you and the other person want to. It gives you that space to talk about some stuff that you hadn't talked about during the week. And like I said before, something that can help with this as well. If you feel like you and your partner are both just continually getting emotional, like you can't just be rational, which, yeah, fair enough. You and I were not very rational a lot of the time in the first like 4 years of this relationship. Write it down on a piece of fucking paper. Like, write it all down and then try and be rational in that if you can, but if you can't, that's okay. Then hand it to your partner at a time when you're both calm and say, honey, like, is there any chance you would mind just reading through this over the next couple of days? Take your time with it, you know, read through it if you're happy to. And then whenever you're calm, you can reply back to me, writing it down if you want to. Or we can talk about it if you're feeling calm. Or we can sit here and read it together. Sometimes you and I have done that. You'll write it all down. I'll sit there and read it out loud with you and we'll talk about it. I'll read one sentence or, a couple of sentences and then we'll pause and we'll just talk about what's in there, or we'll read a paragraph and talk. So that can help for sure. Just because when you write stuff down, you're almost always more rational. Like you are. Like you take a little bit more time. You're not just going to blurt something out because you have to write it down on a piece of paper. It takes time. So when I say write, I literally mean write with a pen. Like I wouldn't even necessarily type it on the computer because you can type really fast on a computer and you will type out angry stuff. But if you take the time to write, because it's so slow, you will think about what you're doing a lot more. So that's something that's helped us a lot.
Yeah, but the other thing that I will add is that like for certain conversations, like there's probably no perfect time. Like some conversations might not be easy to bring up. And whether like you're having a really good time together and you're both in a really good mood, you don't want to spoil the mood, or maybe you're not in the best mood and you don't want to make things worse. Like certain conversations, it's like it's probably worth just having it. Or like so I probably wouldn't give this one a 5 out of 5. It's probably going to sit like around like a 3.5, maybe up to a 4, because like sometimes you can't pick a perfect time and place and it might not be a fun conversation, and it's just more helpful to come out and say the thing versus trying to find the perfect way or the perfect time to say things. And then at the same time, like it can be helpful to have some consideration about when you're bringing things up, even simple things like when I maybe have something bigger or more emotionally charged that I want to discuss with you, I won't bring that up. Or it's happened before, it's happened plenty of times, but I do my best now that we're probably both in a more rational place. Like I try my best not to bring up things that are too heavy or too emotional, like before like a major coaching call that you have to do, or whether you're like before a sign-up call, or if you've got a lot going on, I might just leave it till the next day. Or if
Yeah,
you
but
say
we never leave it that long. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, no, definitely don't leave it very long.
You
but
leave it like 24 hours max to tell me anything. Me too.
Yeah, or I might not try and have a big conversation with you late at night, right before bed when we're both tired. It's like I've scheduled a message for the morning and we can talk about it and we'll go for a walk the next day, because that's going to be the most effective space to talk about. Yes, I don't think there's much merit to leaving anything more than like a day or two to talk about.
As the previous one said, though, with mind reading, I think you can fall into the trap there of saying, oh, I have to mind read when would be a good time to talk about this with my partner. Just ask them. And you didn't say that, but that's what we do all the time. You asked me this morning. You literally asked me this morning. There's this big topic that I wanted to, it wasn't big, but like there's this topic I want to talk about. Andy, here's what I want to talk about. But how are you feeling, Andy? Because I'm tired. I woke up like really early this morning. And so you were like, I know you're tired today. Do you feel like you have the patience or the space right now to talk about this morning? And I was like, yeah, go on then. Let's talk about it. And then we talked about it. And so you don't have to mind read and try and figure out, is now a good time? Oh, I have to tiptoe and make sure, oh, I don't want to step on their toes. You can just be like, hey, honey, I want to talk about this topic. Do you feel like you got the space to talk about that now? Or do you want to talk about it later? And your partner might be like, no, not right now, honey. I have all this work shit to do. I don't want to do it. I would, in those moments, you don't have to necessarily schedule something, but I would give the person some hope that you are going to talk about it. I wouldn't just keep kicking the can down the road and be like, we'll talk about it later. I'm busy. Come back to me later. And you just keep saying that. And then the person goes, fucking hell, it's been like 6 months and we haven't talked about this. I want to talk about this. No, I would say, look, honey, I'm busy with the work stuff. You know, I've got this big meeting coming up in a week. Do you mind if we talk about it afterwards? And she'll be like, yeah, I think I can wait after a week. Okay. And then within that, none of this advice so far has said this, but actually, it's funny that none of the advice has said this so far. This is maybe one thing I would add. You're allowed to talk to other people about any of this stuff. This has
Yeah.
not come up so far at all, but like a lot of the stuff that we think we have to talk about with our partner, like we're like, I need my partner to solve this with me. It's like your friends could just solve that problem. It's more like a personal problem that you're making a relationship problem. But if you just went and solved it with your friends, you'd solve the problem and be like, oh shit, like I didn't
Yeah.
even need my partner for that. And then you come back to them later and you go, honey, I solved this problem. I thought it was a problem that I thought you were the problem, or I thought we had a problem. But I went and talked to my friends and they're like, oh, don't worry, honey, you're fine. And they solved it with me. So it's all good.
Yeah, stuff often has a way of self-resolving. Like the amount of times where like, so I don't see a counselor or a psychologist or a coach regularly, but I kind of book in random sessions here and then when I feel like I need it. But the amount of times it's happened where like I feel like I'm really doing not okay and I feel like everything's going wrong and I need guidance, I need help, I need to talk to someone. And then like, all right, we can book for like I've got an appointment in 2 weeks. And then I wait the 2 weeks and by the time the appointment comes around, I'm like, oh, I'm actually okay now.
Yeah, that problem sorted itself. I was
Yeah.
just making it a big problem when it wasn't really at all. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah, it turns out it's not a big problem most of the time.
we've been saying, like, I think we've said this a little bit, but I guess I want to emphasize, like, this morning, like, I'll use this as an example. Like, the only way that I was able to even preempt and say, like, hey, are you able to, like, do you have the space to talk about this right now? The ability, or like, we've only gotten to this point, and my ability to do that only came from, like, it's been a big learning process
For years,
for both of us.
It's taken us a lot of years to get to
And
this point, yeah.
it's come from, less pleasant conversations where I wanted to talk about something and you'd be like, I can't believe you're talking to this to me right now. Like, I worked so
no,
hard.
that is how it
and,
used to go. Hey,
like,
like
this
everything.
is so hard for me. Like, why are we talking about this right now?
Why are
ask
you doing
so
this
much
to
of
me? I used to say that. I would like you would come to me and be like, honey, like I have this emotional problem that I'd like to talk about with you. And I'd be like, why are you doing this to me? You know I'm stressed about work and coaching. Like, why would you bring this up now? And you're like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
And
Like,
at the same time, like, there were points where, and you and I have both done this, where the other person will say, like, hey, I don't have the space to be
Yeah.
here for you right now. And then we've gotten angry and being like, you should be here. Like, fuck you. Like,
you need to listen to me. That's
Yeah.
like the trope. Like a woman will be like, can you talk? Can you listen to me? And he'll be like, honey, I'm really busy. And she's like, you never listen to me. Yeah, like that.
So yeah, we're both only able to be at this point. Again, we're still not perfect, but from working on this stuff a lot, like a lot, and we've gotten a lot better.
Like,
But
to be very clear, this has been probably the main mission that we've worked on for the last 6.5 years. It's certainly been something that we've put a ridiculous, like we've put 10,000 hours into our relationship. What I mean by that is like 10,000 hours of communication, like 10,000 hours of how can we improve, how can we learn, how can we grow? Because that benefits each of us individually. Like we've used the relationship at times essentially for like self-therapy, essentially as a self-improvement thing, like literally to improve ourselves as much as the relationship. Like I would say we've built ourselves more than we've built the relationship, and we've obviously done a lot to build the relationship. So yeah, it doesn't have to take that long. We had no idea what we were doing, and we were both so full of baggage and fear and trauma and all sorts of stuff, and we were both convinced that we were not going to make it work. Like we just were two train wrecks. We were doing our best, but a lot of you you won't have as much baggage as us. So it doesn't have to take you as many years. But I mean, the good news there is like you're dealing with two people that had a ton of mental issues, a ton of like, I used to be depressed and suicidal. I'd gone to jail when I was younger. Like we both had our fair share of like baggage, I guess you would say. And if we can work through all of that and get to a place of like peace and just being able to talk about this shit, even any of you listening definitely can. Like, yeah. Go.
I can't read it.
Whoops, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot to put it on the screen, so she can't even read. I was wondering why you weren't reading that. I was like, what is my girlfriend retarded? Like, yeah, there you go.
Thanks. Seek compromise. Communication is not just about expressing your own needs, but also understanding your partner's perspective. Strive for compromise and find solutions that meet both of your needs. Collaboration and mutual understanding are key. So I'm going to jump in because we already discussed that Andy's going to tee off on this one because Andy hates the word compromise.
I don't hate the word compromise.
And
it's just extremely limited. You're putting yourself in a box.
I don't feel as strongly about it because I think like some of the points that were made here, like find solutions that meet both of your needs. I feel like that's a very beautiful, positive thing
I think
where
that's
you
wonderful. Yeah.
find, again, it's about finding solutions where you're both happy. It's not
Yeah.
about you both sacrificing. It's actually the opposite. It's about making sure that, two people coming together in a relationship, it's natural. You're not going to agree on everything. You're not going to feel the same about everything. And there's probably going to be times where you want to butt heads
Yeah.
because there's going to be that disagreement. It's finding a way to be together and still
both be happy.
yeah, and still both be really happy about what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, so I would agree with everything you just said. Basically, you don't have to compromise. People often say things like relationships require sacrifice, relationships require work. Being a mother is hard work. People do that all the time. You have to just go to your job and work your job, and it's a grind sometimes and it sucks. People will say life is suffering. Life sucks sometimes. It's like, yeah, if you say that, then of course it's going to suffer. Like you're going to literally make that come true. Self-fulfilling prophecy. But instead of seeing a relationship as requiring compromise, what I would focus on instead is finding solutions like playing to win. Like my Play to Win video course, every problem has a solution. And not just a solution where one of us has to compromise, which basically implies that one of us isn't fully 100% happy. And we're just going, yeah, I'll put up with it and it's fine. And then they will sacrifice for me in the future. It's almost like this quid pro quo of suffering and sacrifice and compromise. You're saying, fine, I'll eat shit a little bit right now and be a little bit unhappy with this, but then you better do something for me in the future. And if I'm compromising too much, then I'll build up resentment. That's my contention here, is that if we look for compromising solutions, like if we say, all right, we're going to have to compromise, if one person compromises a lot, they will start to build up resentment and say, this isn't fair. And then we have to start having the conversation about equality. And I need you. You're basically saying, I've been unhappy for you a whole bunch of times. Now I want you to be unhappy for me. You are seeking unhappiness, even just in that tiniest little part. Compromise can be small, but it's that sort of slippery slope of like, yeah, a relationship has to involve one of us being unhappy sometimes. And it's like, no, fuck no. Why? So you can find solutions where you both win and nobody loses at all. And I talk about this in the Play to Win video course in that chapter, Every Problem Has a Solution. And so rather than compromise, I would focus on things like letting go of the things that I can't change and learning to be more compassionate and solving my own problems sometimes and finding those solutions and, all of that sort of stuff. And then having discussions. And sometimes you might have to get very creative because there's lots of times when you and I have hit what seems to be a wall. And it's like, all right, one of us is going to have to sacrifice here. Like one of us is going to have to compromise. We've literally had that conversation. One of us is going to compromise. Who is it going to be? Otherwise, we have to break up. And we don't want to break up. We'd like to be together. Who's going to compromise? And we've both said, nah, like there has to be some solution here where we're both happy with it. And sometimes we've had to get very creative. Sometimes it's taken months because it's like, holy shit, we're going to have to think outside the box here. Everybody else that we ask and all of the stuff that we Google and all the mainstream advice, like we're reading out here from ChatGPT and mainstream sources, tells us that you have to compromise. And we can't find anyone who's found a solution to this problem that we're facing. But maybe we will ask. Our spiritual coach, Keith, is really good at just being open-minded and not limiting himself with compromise and bullshit like that. Maybe we'll have to ask some people who can think outside the box. And every single time we come up with some solution, sometimes it takes months. There's even been a few things that have taken like a year or more. And then we find a solution and we're like, I'd be really happy with this solution. Would you? And then you're like, huh, I think so, yeah. What the fuck? Like, how did we stumble upon this? Just by like persevering. So yeah, I don't think there's anything that you have to sacrifice or compromise on. And maybe I'd phrase it like this. You are allowed to compromise if you want to. Like, do whatever you want. It's your fucking relationships. Just understand that compromise often comes with keeping a tally. Like, in your brain, you will subconsciously go, well, I've compromised 5 times and she's only compromised 1 time. So that's not fair. And your brain can then start to build up resentment. There are things you can do with that. You can let go. Maybe the other person could give you gratitude for the compromise if you did want to compromise. They could be like, I really appreciate you making this compromise. Thank you. It means the world to me. Maybe they could do something for you. I wouldn't do that out of guilt. I would do that out of love and appreciation. Like, thank you for making this compromise. But at that point, you're almost going down a pathway where it's not compromising. You're saying, I want to do this for you. So I guess that's what I would say. Don't call it a compromise. Definitely don't call it a fucking sacrifice because you just hurt yourself and you hang on to it and feel like a martyr. I would let go of any of these notions of compromising or sacrificing and just say, do I want to do this thing for my partner? Would I be doing this for myself? Like, you're doing it for you, not for your partner, really. Like, would this add to my life if I make this decision in this way? If it would, then I'll do that. And then that's not a sacrifice. It's not a compromise. You're doing what you want. So I would get very clear and do what you want rather than what you think you should do or you have to do or you must do or compromise. Anything to add? So yeah, for me, it's more just I wouldn't use the word compromise, but I think we're basically saying the same thing as ChatGPT. It's literally saying like find solutions. Hell yeah.
Yeah. And maybe to the point of like find solutions, I'd probably give it like a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I think this is like, I would call this like a 3 or a 4. I just would not use the word compromise. I'd go seek mutually beneficial solutions. That's how, if I phrased it as that, I'd give that a fucking 5 for my own personal preferences and what I want.
Number 9, practice empathy and understanding. Put yourself in your partner's shoes and try to understand their point of view. Show your empathy and validate their feelings, even if you don't agree with them entirely. This helps create a safe space for open and honest communication.
Yeah, that's basically very similar to all the other ones we've already read. One thing I would add here is, you know, when it says like try to understand their point of view, a lot of the time you just can't because you're like, I don't get it. Like, I literally don't have a frame of reference for what that, like, I haven't necessarily been in their position. So I wouldn't try and understand their point of view. Like, I get what it's saying, but I would ask, like, here's a better way of saying that. If you can't understand their point of view, which happens sometimes, like lots of the time, our brain goes, I can't understand why he's doing that. I can't understand why the fuck, like, what is she thinking? She's stupid. I can't understand. You can understand. You're just feeling that sort of blockage. I would just go to your partner and be like, hey, can you please help me understand? Like, I would say that. Just say, can you help me understand? Like, I'm going to try and be non-judgmental. I might get some feelings come up. I'll do my best. If I really get angry, I can give myself some space and calm down a bit. But can you just like help me understand? Like, why don't you do the dishes? Why do you keep the dishes messy? Like I just want to know from your point of view, is it that it was never important to you? This is something that you and I literally did with the fucking dishes. That's why we keep bringing this up.
Amongst other things, yeah.
I've always been messy with the dishes.
Yeah.
Like, the kitchen is messy. It's just what
And
I
I
do.
actually, like, I realize that I can't stand it. Like, I actually find myself feeling physically ill if there's too much dish mess for very long.
Yeah.
And yeah, when we were living together, I used to get like, because I would do it every single day, multiple times a day. I would clean up after both of us. And sometimes you were like when you make food, which you don't do very often, but like you get shit everywhere. Like the stuff
I'm
all
a
over the
messy boy.
all over the countertop. It's not clean.
I'm a messy boy.
And so like there were just some days of doing it every single day, multiple times a day. I was like, I was tired. I was like, I don't want to do this, but also like I find myself revolted by kitchen mess. And now we don't live together, and it's nice.
Yeah, that was like our mutually beneficial solution. That, like, I'm not even joking. That was part of the solution.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what if we just live really close to each other? You live across the road. You're like 30 seconds walk from me. What if you have your own space and I have my own space, and then yours can be clean and mine can be a bit messy? And we're like, oh yeah.
And
Great.
now I actually have no problem with cleaning
Yeah,
up
now
after
you don't
your
give a
mess.
fuck that my apartment is messy. 'Cause
Or
you're like, it's not my
no, I
apartment.
usually clean it up because I actually still
You're a
don't
little
like it.
sweetie,
But
you're so
I
sweet.
find myself less upset 'cause if I really don't like it, I'm like, I'm going home now. Like I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. Anyway, what point were we making? Anyway, the point was you asked me at some point. You were like, why? I just want to understand. Like, why do you like the kitchen messy? And I explained it to you. And like, it took us a little bit of going back and forth to try and communicate that. Because for me, at first, I was just like, I don't know. I've never thought about it. I just don't care.
And it's not a very satisfying
Yeah, it's
answer.
not
If you're
satisfying
like,
to be like,
why
I
do
don't
you?
know.
And you're
Why do
like,
you do this?
There's
I
no
don't know.
reason. And you're
Yeah.
like, ugh. There
Yeah.
should be a reason then if you're gonna.
And so it took
Yeah.
quite an open mind from you and from me too. Open mind, open heart, and lots of conversations over like, I don't know, a week or two until finally we got to a point where I was like, I basically said to you, you know, like the thing I said before about empathy is like, just try and think of a situation where you've done something similar and put yourself in that situation. So rather than trying to put yourself in the other person's point of view, which, yeah, that helps. But if you can't do that, try and think of a time that you've felt similar and how you felt and what you're thinking and all of that. And so I said to you, is there anything that you don't care about? And there's lots of things you don't care about. An example is the microwave. You know, the microwave thing?
Yeah.
She will often put stuff in the microwave, and then before them, you know how the microwave counts down like 30 seconds, and then when it gets to 0, it's done. You will take it out before it gets to 0. You'll take it out when it's on like 3 seconds left or something.
Yeah.
And the microwave that I have here, none of the functions work. You can't do anything with the microwave if it's stuck on a few seconds.
So you need to hit one more button to
You have
reset
to
it.
you have to hit reset, but it's not obvious. And so every time I go to use the microwave, I'll go to type in the numbers and they just won't be working. And I'll be like, why aren't they? Oh, okay, she's left time on the clock. And then I have to hit the reset button. And the reset button on that one's really hard to find. I don't know. It's really
like hiding.
anyway. And so for me, that used to be something that would annoy me. And again, these are just such minor things, but people fucking break up and domestic violence and all sorts of shit from just the little things that they haven't resolved. And it's never about the little thing. It's all the stuff that's going on underneath the surface. But anyway, so the microwave thing, I said, with the dishes thing, you were annoyed at me for messy kitchen. You couldn't understand it. And I was like, why do you think about this. Why do you leave the microwave on? And you were like, I don't know. I just always have. And I was like, that's me with the dishes. And you're like, oh, I get it. Okay.
I can give you reasons why I leave the microwave like that, but I get your
you know
point.
what I mean?
Yes.
It's
yes,
like,
yes.
you just go like, well, why do you do this? And then the person's like, why do I do that? And then they explain it and you're like, yeah, that's why I do the other thing that you get annoyed at. And you're like, oh shit. And you don't do that in an accusatory way. It's not like, you come at me and go like, why are you leaving the dishes messy? And then I'm like, you fuck up the microwave all the time, you fucking silly bitch. And then you get into a fight. No, it's just having a calm conversation. And you might not always be perfect with that. That's okay. But you're just trying to figure out, do they do something similar to what I'm doing? And then can we try and bridge that gap of understanding? So yeah, you can just ask your partner, why do you do this? Why do you think like this? What do you actually want? What are you trying to accomplish? What are your deep principles and things that you deeply care about? That's another thing we've done. A lot of the time we used to have tons of arguments about money. And it wasn't until we really got deep in the empathy stuff. And I was like, okay, because you're someone that doesn't like to spend money and likes to sort of save it. I'm someone that's happy to let go of money and give it to homeless people and not hold on to it.
Let's say conservative versus less conservative when it comes to spending money.
Yeah. And we would often butt heads, and we both at first egotistical, like we all have a big ego, don't we? And we would argue, and I'd say, my point is right and you're wrong. And you're like, my point is right and you're wrong. And it was only when we got in there and said, okay, why don't you want to spend money? And you were like, here's all the reasons why. My parents raised me to be conservative with money and be careful and cautious and be almost like, I don't know if I'd say fearful of money, but like careful. And then for me, I was like, well, I always grew up having no money. And for the first time in my life, I have a little bit of money that I can give to my friends, that I can give to homeless people, that I can give to other people. And for the first time in my life, I actually feel like I'm not financially anorexic. I don't have to be so unbelievably scared of letting my money go that I hold on to it. And for the first time, I get to explore that. And when we talked about those deeper reasons and who we are as people and our principles and why we do the things that we do, then we could understand. So basically this one is saying, ask why your partner does. Like find the reasons why they do what they do. Find the deeper meaning behind it, and then you understand. But if you're just like, why don't you put the dishes away? Fuck you, bitch, I don't want to. You're never going to have any empathy because you don't know why. And the last one, seek professional help if needed. If communication challenges persist or become too difficult to handle on your own, consider seeking professional help from a couples therapist or counselor, or a beautiful coach named Andy. That's me. Straight up, that's me. They can provide guidance and tools to improve your communication skills. Yeah.
And this is one you said before, but it doesn't have to be professional help. It could just be help from friends and family. Like just having a support network. But we've also both sought independently help from coaches, counselors. Yeah, I've been to psychologists. We did one session together with a relationship psych, and then I was seeing her independently for a little while. It can just be really helpful to not feel like you have to deal with everything internally, and to get a third party to maybe just listen and not be so like emotionally involved, but to like provide some external input or perspective. Because if there's two people, you can both have your very strong opinions and views because you're the ones that are kind of in the mess of it all. Whereas if somebody can step outside of it, it's so much easier to look at things with a clear head when it doesn't really affect you at all.
Yeah, and like you said, this can be friends. Like that's something you and I have done a lot. We've talked to our friends a lot. That really helps. Sometimes people in relationships feel like they shouldn't talk to their friends about this stuff because they're like, no, it's personal. And I understand that gap. We definitely had that. I felt very uncomfortable. Starting to talk about relationship stuff with my family and my friends. But once I was able to get over that fear, and it is just a fear, and start opening up, man, that was so much easier. And sometimes you have the fear of like, but if I'm going to open up to my friends about stuff that's maybe not super positive in the relationship, what if they get a negative view of my relationship? Like, what if all that they hear from me is the problems? And they then start to think, well, why are you with this partner? First of all, that's fine. They'll just say to you, why are you with this partner? And you go, oh shit, I've only been telling you the negative stuff. Okay, here's all the reasons why. Here's all the positive shit. But you can kind of just do that first. And that was something you and I went through. You had a couple of friends where you'd had pretty much only told them the negative parts of our relationship. And you were talking to me about that. You were like, sometimes they tell me like, why are you with this guy if it's so negative? And so I said, well, look, honey, would it help you if you talk like I think first we started by me saying like, well, okay, why are you with me? Like if all your friends or some of your friends are telling you not to be with me, why are you with me? Like you don't have to be here. And then you were like, well, because of all the positive stuff, like this and this and this and this and this. And then I was like, okay, so you do want to be here. You're like, yes, that's why I'm talking to my friends about it. And I was like, yeah, but they don't know that. You haven't told them any positive shit. Go tell them all the positive shit if you want to. And then, yeah, you'll get to that point where they start to go, okay, I have a bit more of a balanced and nuanced view of the relationship. So, yeah, that's just a fear that might come up. It came up for me too, because I hadn't told my friends a whole lot of the positives. I told bits and pieces. So that was something I started actively doing was like, all right, I want to celebrate anytime my girlfriend does something sweet. The stuff that we usually keep to ourselves, like you buy me a beautiful gift or something, I would start telling my friends. I'd take a photo and be like, look at this beautiful thing that Emmy bought me. Isn't she the sweetest girlfriend ever? And they'd be like, oh, she's so sweet. So yeah, you can share a bit more nuanced stuff.
Yeah.
And then two extra things that came up in my mind that maybe ChatGPT didn't say explicitly was number one, be honest and tell the truth. I'm surprised that didn't come up at all. Like that to me is maybe the main takeaway here. Be honest, tell the truth, do your best to be rational and logical. If you struggle with that, that's okay. Work on your stoicism, progress, not perfection. But if you can get to a point where you're honest and you tell the truth and you'd rather be honest than be right, man, that makes communication so much better. A lot of the time in communication, especially in a relationship, people are hanging on to like, they're trying to twist things. They don't mean to, but they'll twist things and almost misrepresent the truth in order to win. And you and I used to do that a lot, like in the first couple of years. But if you can just stick to the truth and be honest, which can be a challenge, man, this shit goes so much easier. And then the second thing is see your partner as your teammate. It didn't really say that either, but I think that's a really important one. You and your partner are on the same team. It's you and your partner. It's not you versus your partner. So it's not some enemy that you have to think of the perfect way to phrase things, and you don't have to tiptoe and be scared of them. You can go to them and say, honey, I feel like we're not on the same team right now, and I'd like to do what I can to improve that. Would you like to help me with that? And then they go, yeah, I would. Or they say, not right now, I'll do it later. And you go, cool, like, great. And so maybe a third thing I would say, be on your own team as well. Like, be there for yourself. Actually, that didn't come up at all either, did it? Like, it didn't say anything about your own independence. I would say the best thing you can do for communication in a relationship is work on your own self-love, like above everything else.
Just make sure you're happy. It's so much easier to have peaceful, happy, conversations with other people when you yourself are happy.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a really good book on this called I Need Your Love, Is That True? By Byron Katie. I would check that out. My Play to Win video course also covers this. If you would like any more coaching with any of this stuff, hell yeah, there's a link in the description below. We've done couples counseling we did one couple together, and then I worked with another couple, two couples. I can't remember, two couples, I think. So we've done like 3 couples where we've done like couples counseling, and that's been really fun. So happy to do that. Or if you're just looking for a relationship and you don't have one yet, hell yeah, I will help you with that. Or if you just want to get that penis of yours wet or that vagina of yours dry, plugged. What are women like? Plugged. You want to get plugged.
I don't like that word.
You want to get plumbed.
That's just
You want a boy to lay pipe and you're the pipe, then happy to help with that. Link in the description below. I appreciate you so much. You're so pretty.
I appreciate you too.
As always, ladies and gentlemen, and whatever anyone else is, I think there's like fucking 6 genders or some shit now. Did you know about this?
Didn't you read a list that said there's like 40 something?
Pretty sure there's like fucking 40 genders or some shit now.
I don't know.
I just thought there was like the men and the women. I guess if like you had your bits chopped off, then you're like non-binary, right? Like let's say you got into an automobile accident or like a chainsaw accident. Would you still be a man though? Like how does that work?
What's
Leave a
the
comment below. I'm not going to read the fucking
what's it
comments. I
called
don't
when you
care,
have
but-
both male and female genitalia?
Hermaphrodite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I'd love to be that. Then like someone's like, go fuck yourself, and you're like, well, maybe I will then. And then you go home and you fuck yourself. That'd be sweet.
What are your hormones doing with that? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm curious. Anyway, any scientists out there who know about all the different genders, let us know. Yeah, leave a comment and discuss. Are there 2 genders or are there multiple genders? I don't want to start any debates. I don't give a fuck. Nobody cares about genders. Lots of people
Some people
lots
care.
of people get real upset about that shit. Yeah, there's as many genders as you feel in your heart, whatever the fuck you believe. Anyway, this got massively off topic. If you want to come to coaching and not talk about gender,
Go for it.
fuck yeah, leave a link in the description below. And I guess, okay, on a more serious note, disregarding all the stupid shit that I just said then, this is one thing, like communication in a relationship, that has taken us quite a long time to get even remotely decent at.
Yep.
And so you don't have to beat yourself up if you fight with your partner all the time. Believe me, we were there for so many years and we would argue and we would feel like we couldn't do anything to make it work. And we'd feel like, fuck, do we have to break up? We keep fighting all the time. Like, trust me when I say we've been there. I promise that it can get better if you keep working on it and you're aiming to make progress. I promise the juice is worth the squeeze. I can't say that for every single one of your relationships. I don't know. But at least for us, it was really, really, really worth learning how to be better at communication. It had a positive effect on every other part of our relationship and every other part of our entire life. Like us being able to communicate a bit better helped with family, helped with coaching clients, like for me, helped with business and all of that sort of stuff. So I promise it's worth it. Believe me when we say we know how it feels to be in the middle of that pain and that argument and not knowing how to communicate. Like, I know it feels like suffering. I promise you there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You're doing a really good job. And what might help you to realize or remember is that your partner's trying to do their best, and so are you.